This is DRF Race of the Day.
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here. I have your Thursday, October 14th DRF Race of the Day right here, Belmont Park. Race number 8. We're going a mile on the Widener turf course for fillies and mares entry-level allowance race for your Thursday Race of the Day. Let's take a look at the field right now. As always, you can download free Formulator past performances for this race at the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Field of 8 fillies and mares entered, several 3-year-olds in the mix here. I think a fairly wide open race. I think there are ways to make cases for, maybe a half the field, maybe a little bit more. I found myself gravitating towards a couple as opposed to a couple of the others, but we'll see how it all plays out. I do feel like there are ways to make cases for several of these horses, and I do think trip is probably going to be very important at the end of the day. So along those lines, let's start out by looking at the Timeform US pace projector, because I think the pace could be key to this race. There are a few horses who I could see going forward in here. It feels like that almost never happens in these turf races in New York, so we'll see. The pace projector places number 6, Miss Delicious, out on the early lead in this race. I can see that happening. I do think that is a viable way of looking at the race. Certainly the one, Evie Jets, has some speed. The number 5, Princess Fauzia, who's back up on class here after defeating a field of claimers a couple of weeks ago. She's back up in class for this, and she has a little speed as well. I do think the 6, Miss Delicious, I think they're going to use her speed again, and I actually feel like it makes her pretty dangerous in here at a price. We'll see if she can, sort of rebound a little bit and run one of her good races here, because this is a filly who came off of the layoff in June here at Belmont Park and wired a field of maidens with a solid 79 buyer speed. They used her speed right from the start that day. She was a big price, 25 to 1, but she was also much the best in there. I like that improvement, that the step forward she took there. She showed big improvement. She came right back in her next start also here at Belmont Park, and she ran well again. She got run down that day after easily making the early lead in that spot, but that was a little bit of a better field. I thought she still ran okay that day. Ran another solid figure in that race. Her next 2 turf starts both came at Saratoga, and she didn't run well, at least on paper, in either one of those 2 starts. But I do feel like there are ways to excuse those performances, and I actually feel like she might have run better than it looks both times. The July 17th race on opening weekend up there at Saratoga, not only was that a really strong pace, but this filly had the far outside post. She went forward, could not make the lead, got caught 4 wide around the first turn, sat on the outside all the way up the benches, could never get over to save any ground, got tired in the stretch in a race that totally fell apart late, and closers got up to run 1-2. I don't think she ran as poorly as it looks that day. She came back in her next start at Saratoga going a mile and an eighth. She did go to the lead, but that was a very solid pace that day against a good field of horses. She got tired and was nowhere at the end, finishing last. But it wasn't the right kind of situation for her. I think this is not only an easier spot for her as she returns to turf after failing to handle the dirt last time, but I do think she could make the lead in here. I think Miss Delicious is a major player in here, and I actually didn't put her on top, but I'm going to use this horse. I think she could make some noise in this race at a fair price. Let's start off by talking about 2 of the horses drawn towards the inside. The 1, Evie Jets, and the 3, Messidor, are exiting the same race at Belmont Park back on September 16th in this condition. This is also going a mile on the Widener turf course. We'll look at the stretch run of this race right now. It's Evie Jets, who's been on the lead the entire way. The eventual winner, Adelaide Miss, who's a big long shot in this race at 12 to 1, just sat right up there with her. They duel through the stretch. Evie Jets never lets Adelaide get by her, but she can't hold on at the end, and she misses the head bob at the end. She loses by a nose and settles for second. Ultimately, you saw Messidor there gaining ground into third in there and actually running a very underrated race. Ultimately, I just didn't see the excuse for Evie Jets not to win that race. She had won her prior turf start against high-priced maiden claimers. Also, when she controlled a relatively slow pace and pulled clear. I just don't love this filly's form overall. She's off the claim here for a very good trainer, but they took her away from Tony Dutrow, who's having an outstanding 2021, especially with his turf horses. I just don't see that Evie Jets is going to improve here. I don't see that she's going to get some kind of soft trip on the lead. And at the end of the day, if I'm taking a horse out of that September 16th race, I'm taking Messidor, another 3-year-old filly. She was shipped over here earlier in the summer by trainer Joseph O'Brien to run in the Grade 3 Saratoga Oaks. She didn't run that well that day, but it was another slow-paced race. They rated her off of it. And it's sort of in and among horses all the way around till they got to the top of the stretch. Once she came clear, she really just didn't do anything. She didn't have any kind of a kick at all. She wasn't going to win regardless because Con Lima, the winner of the race, just controlled the pace all the way around there. But it's not like Messidor, after getting rated off that pace, did a ton of running. She was just overmatched, I guess, by those horses when she came back in that allowance race last time. I think it's, pretty easy to look at that race and say that Messidor is the one that you want out of there. Does it make her good enough to beat this field? It probably doesn't. I still think she's very interested in here. I didn't put her on top either, but at the right price, I could definitely use this horse. I wonder how they'll bet this race. I can see her taking some money, and she's not the kind of field I'd want any kind of a short price on, but she did run well against Dynamics last time. The other replay that I want to look at is a race from Saratoga on Travers Day that the number 2 Golden Plume and the number 4 Windfall Profit are both exiting. This is a 1.16 two-turn race up at Saratoga. And we'll pick up the stretch run here. Very clear, to me anyway, that the horse that you want out of this race is Windfall Profit. They took her back. She was cutting back in distance for this race. Her prior 2 starts had been at 1.25 miles. They put her on the lead in those races, and she didn't hold on at the end. She didn't even come close to holding on at the end. This time, when they cut her back, they took her back to last on the backstretch, and Luis Saez just tried to sweep the field 4 wide around the second turn. She made a big run. She ran by everybody. She got after the eventual winner there, Kitten by the Sea on the lead. She couldn't catch her, and she gets narrowly outfinished by Love and Thunder for second in the race. But Windfall Profit ran great in there. And I feel like if she runs that race back, she's going to be pretty tough in here. The problem with Windfall Profit is she's run well in the past without winning, and hasn't necessarily come back out of those races in her next start and given you any reason to feel like that she was unlucky in those races. She's just not a winning type. She's 1 for 14 overall. She's got 6 seconds and thirds. She tends to show up and run the same race kind of over and over again. I do think that if she runs as well here as she did last time, this may very well be the spot for her to clear this condition. She's just not the kind of horse. I feel like she almost has to get bet off that last race, and she's not the kind of horse that I wanted any kind of a short price. She can win. I didn't pick her. The other horse out of that race is Golden Plume. The 2, this is a Chad Brown production, homebred for Juddmont Farm. And while you saw her in that replay that we just watched sort of get down towards the inside, had a little room down there in the stretch, she had a look at the winner, Kitten by the Sea, on the lead in the stretch, and she just couldn't get there, flattened out a bit at the end and finished off the board after taking some money in there. I think it is worth pointing out that Golden Plume was off of a pretty long layoff in that spot. Her career debut came back in January at Tampa, and while she probably wasn't meeting much of a field that day, she was a very impressive winner. Won that race very handily, earned a solid figure for that race at 68 for a 3-year-old in January. Is not a bad figure at all, and she obviously even improved in that race at Saratoga. It just feels like maybe the layoff and the sort of tougher competition she faced that day might have conspired against her there. I think she's going to run better in here. She's second off the layoff for Chad. I'm sure she's going to take some money in here. But I'm not so sure that she shouldn't take money in here. I feel like there's some ability. I think there's some ability here, and maybe she's in the right spot as well. Those were the sort of the 4 main horses I thought in this race. I had a tough time making cases for the others. Obviously, Miss Delicious, the 6, is the other horse that I want to use, who's drawn towards the outside, and we'll just see if she can get the right trip in here. The 2 horses, Princess Fozzie is the 5. She won here a few days ago when they dropped her in class. She's very consistent. She has some speed. I just feel like she's in too tough here. The 2 horses drawn to the outside, I thought were tough sells a little bit. Obviously, Equal Measure is a little bit cheap for this field, although she did just pull off a big upset against $40,000 claimers here at Belmont Park at the end of September. Contained is another 3-year-old drawn on the outside, the 8. She's very lightly raced. I do think she's better than she looks on paper. She's run a couple of really nice races. Last time at Monmouth Park, off of a little bit of a break, she got wired, or not wired, but Mr. Tracara set right up on the pace and then blew that field out through the stretch. This horse was an okay second that day. I don't think she's impossible in here, but I would want a huge price on her if I was going to use her. Ultimately, I'm going to side against Windfall Profit. I'm going to take Golden Plume out of that Travers Day race. Here's the picks right here. I put Golden Plume, the 2, on top, and I'm going to try to get the number 6, Miss Delicious, in there with her. I'm going to hope that Jose Ortiz just puts her up on the pace in here and she can rebound and get back to one of her good races, because I do think one of her good races gives her a chance in here. The other horses were a little harder for me to get behind. I wanted to pick Messidor. I'm not totally sold on her, though she did run really well last time with the pace of that race against her. Maybe she gets a better setup here. I went 2, 6, 3, and 4 in the Thursday DRF race of the day. It's race number 8 at Belmont Park. The approximate post time is 4:21 Eastern Time. Good luck.